Hello again, everyone. This is Adam, and thank you for welcome back to the show. I gotta work my intros out because it's at present it's becoming first nature, but it certainly isn't there yet. Thanks for coming back. I uploaded my 1 year of drip video last night, and surprised and pleased to see that a couple hundred views had occurred just overnight with comments. And I am overjoyed at that, and I want to thank you. Also, the comments are fascinating too. One fellow, he was pleased to see someone that's up there in age knowing something about DeFi and interested in using drip and stuff like that. I think that's cool. I wrote him back and said, I'm timeless. Okay. This body is what it is, but there's no time to who I am and what I am. And, in some regards, these are parts of some of the things that I want to have known. There are things that are more important. You'll notice I emphasize T's because in our society, we tend to, for some reason, we're de-emphasizing the pronunciation of a T. And I don't know what that's about, but it's not important. It's important. It's important to know that there's something more important than many of the things that we and our attention is being focused on. And that includes money. And yet, since so much focus is on money and its acquisition and somehow gaining it, you need to appreciate and acknowledge where people's thinking are and even acknowledge the reason for that thinking before you can have anyone consider thinking about something different, something greater, for example, something more powerful, because money in and of itself has no power whatsoever. People who think they have no power and think the power is in money are using their power in that regard, in that focus. But ultimately, we are the power. And yet, until we know it, and I say we, but I'm talking about you are the power, I am the power. And this is something that's inviolate, it's inalienable, can't be taken away from us, but we can put it aside, or we can be, you might say, influenced enough to think that the power is someplace else. But having said that, one thing I wanted to do is to correct something that I did not correct. I misspoke in my video somewhere around 35 minutes or so. I talked about the 1% when a person maxes out their supply. There are people who have maxed out their wallets. They've received a 27,000 not only on one, not on two. I know one that is on at least on his third wallet, and where he's now getting a maximum payout of the 100,000 from the wallets that have maxed out. Now, if you can imagine, 100,000 would be what, 100 drip a day, and even at the seven, and I don't know, I may be correct or incorrect. If you've got two wallets that are maxing out at 100 drip a day, costs 100,000. No, it'll be 1,000 drip a day. That's what 100,000. 1% of 100,000 is 1,000. But that's not the point. That's what I realized in watching this, and I didn't correct it in the video, but I'm gonna do it here. I mentioned before, because 1% a day at $1,000 or 1,000 drip a day would basically be 100 days. It would be spent, but it's 365 days. It's 1%. It's 3.65 times what you put in. And so to get to that max of 100,000 drip in terms of what the contract will pay out to complete itself, 270 some odd drip per day. And then that is spent. So the drip ecosystem has a provision for each individual to work their way through the entire wallet. It has, you can accrue up to a certain point. That's the 27,000 some odd. That obligates the contract to pay up to 100,000 drip. So you cannot continue to compound. You can't continue to hydrate when you get to that point. And the only thing you can do from there is to claim. So then you just take whatever it hasn't paid, you start taking it out. And of course, you can use that for whatever you want. Okay? And you can also use it to fund another wallet and start the process again. But it's 270 some odd drip a day is the max that it would pay you out at whatever the price of drip is at that time and at that point. And so the other thing that I want to do, and the reason I brought this screen up, is that I am also, in terms of changing or updating to some extent, you can see where I had 2,600 or so, or 24, however the number was, of drip, and I hydrated to come up to 3,100. I've continued to compound since then to the point that I'm at over 4,000. And this here is like 3 days worth of accruals. So where it took me 20 some odd days to get 120, or should I say at that time 100, this is 3 days of activity. So at any rate, I will, at this moment in time, since I'm doing all of this, I am going to hydrate this. And the interesting about drip is that you do one of two things. You take it out or you put it back in and build your principal. You're literally, it's paying you back, but it's also rewarding you for not using it by giving more value and storing, not storing value, but building up the value. And so as the value is built up, that's where the usefulness and the utility of this comes in. So I'm going to confirm this, and that's basically what I didn't do before. But after a little bit of time, based on your internet speeds and everything else, you get an acknowledgement on both sides. This will go to 0. This will go up by, there it is. Now I have 4,136 drip. And in a short period of time, this number will start going up again. And every 24 hours, now I'll have 41.36 drip accruing here. So 24 hours from today, I'll have 41.36 drip, etc., etc. So with all that being said, I would be remiss not to bring up the daily compounding calculator, because with the number of drip that I have right now, 4136, and you see I'm already growing. So with 4136 as my starting point at 1% a day, and let's say for 6 months, let's see where we go with this, with a 95% redeposit rate, and starting on today's date, let's calculate, and it shows me that in 6 months time, which would be April 18th from today, with nothing else, or let's put it this way, with rates as they are right now, and yeah, that would be with nothing else. So that means if I were not receiving any referral bonuses, for example, things like that, I would be at 23,116 from now if I only compound it from now on. Now that basically means that if I recalculate this, and I want to do a couple different things. This shows the monthly progression, and this also shows weekly, and this shows by day. So 5,000 drip, which was my next milestone, would be somewhere around November 9th. How about that? No, actually November 8th. So that's based on this, but let's take this just a step further. If I go for 7 months instead of 6 and calculate based on those numbers. Well, first of all, here's 27,960. So by May 18th, and we already know that 27,900 is more than is possible, because that would max out at is 27,400 is where you max out, 27,390 something. So on that basis, going back to daily, it would indicate that if we go down, 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 down to the bottom of this, and we got to around 27,400, 27,400, 27,000, that's 400. It would be on May 6th of 2023. May 6th, 2023 would be the day that I would max this wallet out, and that's if there were no new referrals, and that's if no one who has already connected do any more compounding, which we know is not going to happen. So that gives me a date, but it shows you how this tool can be used to help for your planning. And I thought I would add it right here. So my next thing here is to get to 5,000, and then of course to 10,000, and ultimately to 27,000, whatever that number is, to max this out. Now what we're going to do, and what I'm going to do in another video, and I've talked about this, I'm going to do essentially a comparison. So I'm telling you now, I'm going to do a comparison between Drip and CoopCrowd. And it's not a critical comparison because I love them both for different reasons, because they are different animals in and of themselves, but they are animals that you ought to know about. And when you know what they are, how they are alike, and how they are different, you'll realize it's another quiver to put in your toolbox for transformation of your value, for building and accruing, as well as having a stream of income that will produce that for you. That's what I love about what Drip has done and what it does do. And I'll also say, I'm doing this on the day that the animal farm gets started. I'm not unaware of Animal Farm. In fact, I have a little piece in there, but I've done most of my activity there on the Drip Garden. It took me a good amount of time to figure out the scenarios, the theories. They talk about game theory, and the game theory of these systems are very, very different from what we are accustomed to. So the idea of liquidity pools and these pairings and things like that, it all takes some time. And when most of the population has not yet even jumped into the space, there's that learning curve. So you got something that is evolving very rapidly, and you've got already a foreign environment, so to speak, and then you've got all of the disinformation and the misinformation and the FUD that is being pumped out about so many different projects. And of course, you also have the history of so many projects coming up with all the hype and then disappearing with your funds. This has been going on since the environment started. It's one reason why people are sitting aside, but on the other hand, it's not a reason to sit aside. The real thing is you need to get in. You need to become familiar with. A person will not become able to discern these things by sitting on the sidelines, especially when they're looking for negative information, because you're going to get it, even about, I'll say, the good things. And so in that respect, and people who are in Drip, they know there's plenty of negative that has been produced about Drip. And I don't know that there's as much negative per se. There's some on CoopCrowd, but it's in a different area and it's for different reasons. But ultimately, negative information is negative information, and you have to know how to wade through it and how to evaluate it and then make your decisions. So I will say this. Gosh, maybe this is even a short video. And then the next time I'm going to do a video, and I'll be back, and I'll be doing a video to compare CoopCrowd and Drip. Two projects, two platforms that I love for what they do. So with that, thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace. Be well and prosperous, and I love you all.